Good evening, and thank you very, very much for being here. We are very excited to have with us Chandelis Duster for an evening of conversation and later on your questions. Chandelis is a December 10 graduate of the then VCU School of Mass Communications with an undergraduate degree in broadcast journalism. She went on to receive a master's degree in journalism and public affairs from American University in Washington, D.C. And during that time, she covered the 2014 Virginia Senate race for Beltway ballots and for WTOP-FM in Washington. So after grad school in 2015, she headed to NBC News and MSNBC. There she managed the overnight assignment desk and was the weekend White House producer. She contributed to lots of NBC things, like the NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, shows like Morning Joe on MSNBC. She wrote for Today.com and various NBC News platforms. So today, she works as a politics reporter for CNN, covering breaking news in Washington, D.C. In 2018, she received a Salute to Excellence Award from the National Association of Black Journalists as an editor of a two-part news feature on Jamaica's Barrel Children. Oh, Lord. I'm hitting the button. We're not there yet. And she was also nominated for another award for editor on her story about Kenyan entrepreneurs in Africa's emerging Silicon Valley. So please join me in welcoming Chandelis Duster.
Hi. It's a pleasure.
Please. Chandelis, thank you so much for being here.
I am so happy to be back on campus and to be here in front of all of you.
It's not like anything's going on in D.C. right now for you to come down here.
Well, yes. Senate impeachment trial started today.
Yeah.
Lots of things happening in Washington.
So it's a good thing you can work remotely.
Yes.
All right.
But I'm off today.
Oh, really?
I'm off today.
I did not know that. All right.
They were gracious enough to let me be off, but
right.
I have to be back.
Okay. So as the title says, from VCU Insight to CNN Politics, we did want to show everyone Chandelis back in the day for VCU Insight.
Oh, wow.
And that must look pretty good, though, Chandelis. Your name right up next to one of the biggest brands in news around the world, period.
Yes. It is a blessing. And a lot of times, even when I was here as a student, I would think and watch CNN a lot and watch NBC News and all the other programs and news organizations and the shows. And, you know, when I was here in 2010, I didn't think that I would end up at CNN. I dreamed about it. I was actually offered an internship, and back then we had house phones, and the recruiter had called, and I missed the call, and unfortunately my time they moved on. So it's funny how life comes around full circle, and now here I am.
So where she started was in beautiful Florence, Alabama.
The O'Neill Bridge, that's the Tennessee River.
Which is, right on the Tennessee River. Okay, so this is where you grew up.
Yes, this is where I grew up. Small town. It is west of Huntsville, which is where the Space and Rocket Center is. It's a fairly small town. It's a river city. But if you go across the bridge, I'm trying to see. So Florence is on this side. But if you go back this way, that will take you over to the Muscle Shoals area, and Fame Studios is in Muscle Shoals.
Okay.
So even though it's a small, really small town in Alabama, it has a lot of history, and I love it, and I have a lot of memories there, and my passion and desire for journalism and telling stories, that's where it started.
Okay, so please tell us about that.
Well, embarrassingly, when I was a little kid, I would obviously see Oprah on television, and I would sit and watch, and I would have my fake microphone, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like Oprah, I'm gonna talk to everyone. And then when I got to high school, I was involved a lot, and it was funny because I was terrified of writing when I was in high school. I was very terrified.
Really?
I was terrified of writing. I was actually enrolled in a creative writing class, and I quickly unrolled because it scared me.
Okay.
I think I was in that class maybe 2 weeks. And then I started doing theater and, continued to do theater all throughout high school. Once I graduated, I went to Troy University, and I was going to, minor in journalism, and I wanted to do theater. And I said, I really, really want to continue that. I'm not going to be afraid of it. And I was always told I was a good writer, but it scared me. And so I ended up transferring from Troy after a year to VCU. My brother-in-law had got deployed to Iraq, and my sister didn't want to be alone. So I decided to come up and spend time with her. And she's like, oh, you can go to VCU. They have a great program. I said, oh, okay. And I just loved it. I didn't leave. And so, yeah.
So when you first came onto campus and you did the campus tour and you started wandering around, was it like, yep, I'm home, this is good?
I was nervous. The first building I actually went to was Temple.
Really?
The first building,
okay.
I remember I had took my sister's car, actually, and she was like, just drive around Richmond and get used to it. And so I remember going.
Drive around Richmond and get used to it.
Yes, in her car. And at one point, I did something wrong with the car, and I was actually stuck on 95. It was actually terrifying, in the middle of the road. But I remember driving around and getting lost and places. But I remember I did on a weekend, I just came and I just wanted to get a feel for things. And so I went to Temple and I walked around and I said, oh, okay, I like it here. I really, really like it. So, VCU, it was great. VCU was good to me. And even being in the mass communications program was a little terrifying at first, because I was new. I didn't know anyone, and it was kind of like starting over for me. And when you're first coming out of high school, everything is terrifying. So I was just really nervous. But I fell into it, and I think I did good.
Yes, you did. I think so too.
I loved Insight.
Thank you very much. We'll talk more about that. So while actually in your bio, you mentioned that this happened starting actually in Florence, that you started interning places.
Yes.
And then when you came here, you interned for Urban One, Radio One,
yes,
and also what is now Summit Media.
Yes, I did. So I believe it was after my first year here, I actually went back home to Florence and I did a radio internship for Shoals Radio Group. And, it wasn't for credit or anything. And, I would go out with the different stations. And I remember one of the first events that I actually covered was a football game at my old high school. And so I remember going around. It was like a scrimmage, and it was like tailgating and everything. And I think it was like a Falcon night or something. I can't remember. But I remember going and, reporting it back on the I can't even remember what we call those. But it was, what did we call those things? It's been so long ago, I can't remember. But I would go and talk to the coaches about, the team,
sure,
and everything that was happening, what they were expecting for the year. And, I would do those little mini segments. And then the person who was back in the studio would actually say, oh, we're talking to Chandelis out in the field. She is at the, Florence High School, Falcon Night, blah, 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 blah. And that was kind of like my first run into, and I was like, oh, I like this.
Right. And
I was really, really passionate about radio. So, once I got back and, the following summer, I did my internships with iPower, Power 92.1 and, Praise and Kiss. And that really, really hit home for me. Like, oh, I really love broadcast. Radio, I always say, was my first love. And I remember helping out with Stone Soul. When it was down on Browns Island, and helping out, getting the artists settled, and kind of doing their little hits that they would do that would be on air. And back then it was Trey Songs and I remember it was Eric Benet and DJ Khaled, and it was fun. It was fun. And so I said, I really want to stay in this realm. And so before I graduated from VCU, I ended up going over to, which was Cox, starting on the promotions team as a promotions assistant. And so I was like, oh, yay, even though this isn't, a full-time gig, I'm here. I was like, I'm here. Before I graduated, this is great. And so worked on promotions, did production, helped voice some commercials, and even when artists or guests that we would have would come into the studio, just being there with that. And so that was great, and that was fun.
And you also you got to work with nationally syndicated shows.
Yes, I did. So when I was an intern over at Radio 1, it was the Michael Bazin show that was over on KISS. And so that would come on at night, and so sometimes I would help out with that. And then over on Power, it was the Russ Parr Morning Show. Mm-hmm. So I remember when Russ Bus came into Richmond, I also helped out with that. And it's funny, one of the hosts that was there, her and I are still friends today, and so she's up in DC on air now. And I remember being backstage. It was at the RIR, and it was Lil Boosie, and it was, and I laugh about it because it was really funny. It was Lil Boosie, and I believe it was Pretty Ricky. It was Pretty Ricky, and just trying to help keep things smooth and in order. And then it was Yo Gotti. Yeah, it was.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Yeah, they were.
Those were the days. But no, it was a lot of fun going out and talking in the crowd and talking with people, and that kind of helped me really break into actually coming out of my shell. Because as a journalist, you have to talk to people from all walks of life. So just going around and, talking to people, and even just asking people questions of, what song do you want to hear us play more? What song are you tired of? Or the typical, hey, who's your favorite, on-air personality? And, would you like to get a $50 gift card? Little things like that, it seemed really insignificant at the time, but it really helped shape me into what I do now. Because not only was it entertainment and it's great as artists, but it's a lot of personalities. And it just really just broke that ice of me. Hi, how are you doing? And so, hey, how are you doing? It's nice to have you here. Do you need anything? We're going to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And so those were my fun days.
So you had mentioned that you were also voicing some commercials and such. And so one of the things that you did was start working for a place called Studio Center Voice Talent.
Yes.
And you got on their roster.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So even when I was an intern at Shoals Radio Group, I remember the first commercial I ever did, they just needed somebody to just, we just need a voice on this. This is for a client. It was for T-Gales. It was this beauty store back home in Florence. I don't know if it's still there, but I just remember saying, for lashes and nails, it's T-Gales or something like that. I can't remember. But that was one of the first commercials that I ever did. And they said, you're really, really good at this. You should really, really think about this. I'm just like, whatever, that's fine. And so when I got to Radio 1, I helped do a little bit more of it. And then even when I got over to Cox, they would need a voice on certain things. And they were like, you really might want to think about this. And I said, okay, fine. So I'd heard of Studio Center Total Production. And so they would have a voiceover academy. And so I remember just going down to Virginia Beach and taking classes. I believe it was like 6 weeks. And it was a small group of us down at their headquarters in Virginia Beach. And so at the end of you taking the classes, they gave you an opportunity to just do a demo that would be heard by the CEO, and they would decide on whether or not they would add you as a talent on the roster. And so I did it, and after a couple of weeks, they let me know, like, hey, we really like what you heard. We'd like to offer you this spot, And I said, oh, great. I remember I was actually at a radio promotion event right up at Nissan of Richmond when I got the phone call. And so it was very, very exciting. And, it's been a lot of, and it's kind of, it's like a freelance thing too. Mm-hmm. So, voiceover work, you would go and do a lot of auditions. Maybe they would call you back, maybe they wouldn't. But it's still the great experience of, I will look at it like as I'm, sharpening my skill. It's giving me a chance to, test my range and to go and, just, see what I can do and what I couldn't do. And I think this was one of the first commercials I did for Studio Center was for a bank. And I think it was a bank out of Mississippi. And I remember saying, yeah, that's who it was. It was Bank Plus. I remember saying, welcome to Bank Plus. It was with Bank Plus. I don't even know if that's still a bank anymore. I have never heard of Bank Plus. I don't know where it is. But that was really exciting. And then that kind of just took off. It was extra money. It was, I was like, oh, this is extra money. This is great. I'm not going to turn down money, to go and maybe say 3 words or a sentence or whatever. And it was nice. It's, the clients would come and, they would tell you what they want. And, no matter how many times I would repeat it, I'm not complaining, I'm getting paid.
That's right.
So, it was a range of different companies that I would do some commercials for. And so it was excellent.
So what I'm hearing though are that you didn't put all your eggs in one basket, that you diversified your skill set, so which I'm sure just kept on piling up.
Yes, and I've always felt that I wanted to be someone, not like a media personality, but even as a journalist, journalists now don't just do one thing. So I've always wanted to be well versed in different things, whether it was me knowing how to work a camera, me being in front of the camera, whether I know how to interview somebody for radio or talk on radio, or whether that's me producing a commercial or voicing a commercial. I wanted to have a full range of experience doing that. And some people say, well, go ahead and do it and figure out if this is something you really like or whether you don't like it. I actually really liked it. And I'm grateful that I was able to, start out in radio. I do miss radio sometimes. I do, I still love it. But, I really, with the way that people are consuming information and news now, people aren't just getting it one way. And so now, I love being able to write and as well go on air or just do a range of other things that I need to do.
Mm-hmm. So in 2015,
I work at a drive-thru, which is great because I get to wear a headset with a microphone. Makes me feel like Beyonce live in concert.
I love this one.
Beyonce was singing about how to make onion rings by hand, slicing real onions every morning and dipping them twice in homemade batter. Man, she should sing about that.
I was afraid it wasn't going to work, so I didn't want to tease it and then it not happen. But it worked. It happened. I went through a bunch of your commercials, and that was my favorite one, honestly.
Well, good.
So Beyonce, be like Beyonce.
My twin soul, yes.
In 2015, you moved on to, and you got this amazing gig at NBC News.
Yes, I did. So right when I came out of graduate school, I freaking out again, like, I need to get a job. I need to do something. I was still in connect with a VCU alum, Jeffrey Blunt, who was at the time director of nightly news in Washington. And so throughout graduate school, I was like, well, what do you think about this that I did? Or what do you think about this story? And we would go and have lunch and we would just talk over some things. And so I was always interested in NBC News. I actually did apply for an internship for NBC News when I was in graduate school. I did not get it.
I'm sorry.
It all worked out.
It all works out.
I applied to several internships with ABC News and other news organizations, and I never got an internship in television. And so I was crushed. I was like, how am I going to get a job in television if I do not have an internship? How can I get my foot in the door and do this? I need something more than just what I did in school. So, Jeffrey let me know, hey, we have a desk assistant program here. I believe, some people may be leaving. You may want to get into contact with this person. And so I applied and I went in, I did my interview, and it was intimidating. It was intimidating. I remember they asked me, if you were to do nightly news tonight, what are the top 5 stories that you would have on nightly news? And I'm like, this. And
I guess the answers worked out okay.
the answers were fine. And then I remember I blanked out on the fifth one. I said, wait, how many stories am I going to have in the A block? And I remember they laughed and they said, it's normally this amount. I said, oh, okay. And so they did call me back and they offered me a position as a desk assistant in the Washington Bureau. And I said, sure, I'll take it. And so I scrambled and I got started. And once I got there, everything, it just took off. It just took off. And as a desk assistant, I remember I started out just answering the phones. I would have to be in at 6 a.m. My shift was 6 a.m. to 2, which was very challenging. And it wasn't,
Are you not a morning person, Chandelis? I'll take that as a no.
No. I prefer, evenings, but I mean, you get used to it. And so I started out answering the phones. And at the time, I was just thinking, oh man, this is tough. And then, so from there, I went on to working on the booking desk for MSNBC, getting the guests situated, making sure the anchors and the correspondents knew what they were, what the topics were coming up for the different shows, and then running scripts for Morning Joe. I would have to be in sometimes at 3 a.m. That was fun. Whenever Mika and Joe would come down to DC, that was a great experience. And then also for Andrea Mitchell, running scripts for Andrea Mitchell for her show. And from there, I decided that they were like, okay, we think you would be good to start working down in what we call intake. That's where all of our feeds would come in from different places out in the field. And I would, you're looking at the feeds, making sure they're being recorded so it can be used for on air. You're looking at several screens trying to make sure that, we're not just, as we call it, rolling on black because you're just taking up unnecessary space. And they would say, okay, now we have a White House rotation. So at the White House, we would have producers there during the week, but then on the weekend we would, we need someone there. And so at the time, as we know, former President Obama was in the White House. And so it was my turn. And I remember being terrified. I was like, I got to go to the White House and do what? And so I remember I went down during the week, getting familiar with the White House team, being in a booth, being, where the press is. And I remember sitting in a press briefing by Josh Earnest, former press secretary. And, it was, at the time I'm thinking, this is a little boring. Now we can never say that. But I was like, oh, wow, this, really, really getting this experience and just really sitting here and just listening to, just getting the feel of it. Because I just wanted to know in case I ever have to run down here, what to expect being down here. And so one weekend I worked, it was actually the weekend of 9/11. And, the different networks have a pool. So, different networks are the main pool for the day, which means for maybe TV, a certain network would be the ones that are traveling with the president. You can't have like 5 or 6 cameras at one time. So one network would be the main one recording the footage, and all the networks would be able to use it. And then even along with the print organizations as well. And so NBC was pulled that day. And it was a Saturday. As we were like, oh, he's probably gonna go golfing. And we get the call to to gather together and to get in the motorcades, and I was in the motorcade, and I'm like, oh wow, we're going somewhere. And I remember texting my mom and my sister because we have like a group chat, and I'm like, yeah, just letting you guys know, I'm going with the president. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm okay. And my mom's texting back, wait, you're going where? Where? What are you doing? And I was like, no, it's all good. I don't know where we're going, because we didn't know.
Sure.
And he did end up going golfing in Owing Mills with Under Armour CEO Kevin Plank. And so that was great, getting the footage and being out there. And, but me being, the TV pool, you have to report all of every movement. So you're sending out the updates to not only to the network, but it's 5 other networks, and it's thousands of people that are on these notifications. So you never know who got it. It could be an executive at a news organization over here. It could be a president at a news organization over there. So you're not going to be cute about it. You're literally you're working. And even though he went golfing, and it was great, and it was everything was smooth that day, I still had to report everything. And so at the end of the day, when we got back, the footage that, we had got, we had to do a call out to the networks, and, they had to get up to speed and record it. So it didn't hit me what I had actually did until I got home later that day. I was like, I did that today? Okay, all right, that's pretty cool. And
it was a good day.
It was a good day. It was a very good day. And then later on, I'm answering a million questions from my mother about, okay, so I haven't heard from you all day. You told me where you were. I knew you were safe. That's good. What was that like? But no, it was a great experience. It was a great experience. And so when I was being at NBC the time I was, it was just as a desk assistant at that time, it was a lot. And I did a lot of writing for .com. That's how I started writing. One of the Washington editors at the time was like, if you guys have any story ideas, just pitch them to us. And one of the stories I wrote was about wildfire funding, funding for the wildfires that were happening out in California. And that was, once I started writing, it didn't stop.
And Mom is in the audience. Mom, would you please wave for us here? Hello, Mom. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
So,
and Dad.
Thank you very much.
And my sister.
So one of the other things that you did at MSNBC was you worked with NBC BLK.
Yes.
So as you can see, the latest news articles, photos, and videos that cover stories, issues, and opinions of the Black community.
Yes.
So quickly tell us about that.
Yes. So after the desk assistant program, I had been in contact with the editor of NBC BLK at the time, and she had asked me, I really would like for you to work with us. And so I became an associate producer, working primarily with digital, but I was still based in Washington, so I was also working, as an associate producer in the Washington Bureau as well. So as an associate producer working with NBC BLK, not only was I writing stories, but I was also going out. So there would be a lot of red carpet events that would happen, in DC, pertaining to, whether it was like a movie premiere or something of that nature that the editor would be interested in. And she's like, hey, you want to go cover that? And I said, sure. I remember one of the first red carpet events that I covered for NBC BLK was the Peace Ball that happened right at the African American Museum. And that was right when President Trump was being elected. And it was a red carpet event and everyone had showed up. I remember, interviewing Fran Drescher from The Nanny and a lot of other people, and just being on that rope line and just seeing how tight of a space it is. And, you're trying to wrangle like, hey, come here, hey, we would like to speak with you, and just getting those questions out really quick and really fast. So doing a lot of that, and that was fun. And also still covering on the political side, because I do love, writing political stories. So even going and covering political events, whether it was the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's conference that would be held, going to that, or maybe it was maybe a talk or something like that, but just being able to, tell those stories pertaining to the Black community as well. And so I did that for about, I started in 2017. Yeah, and so my editor that was there, she took another opportunity, and she ended up going to another news organization. So we were very low staff. So it was just me and her that were, and we had freelancers too, but it was me and her that were, primarily really keeping the gears going on the site. So when she left, it was just me. And so I was like, oh, great. I have this vertical. And so management was like, oh, we're going to, go ahead and, do another search for another editor. And here you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do that. And so it was, it was left in my hands. So I really took the opportunity and the chance to edit as well, start editing stories and guiding our freelancers and assigning stories, as well as continuing to write. And so I did that, and I was also working in conjunction with the other verticals as well. So it's NBC.
And a vertical is what? Exactly?
A vertical is basically it's a section. It's just a section of NBCnews.com, but we call them verticals because I don't know why we call them verticals. So I worked with other sections as well, including NBC Asian America, NBC Latino, and NBC Out. Working with those editors who were a great help to me. And we always would have a collaborative effort, just brainstorming on different stories, just even all across NBCnews.com. And so I really, I enjoyed editing. I had been taught to edit a little bit even when I was a DA. So I knew how to, line edit a story. And, I was always told I had good news judgment. And so it was great. It was great.
So before we start taking questions here, I wanted to ask you about something that I know is kind of close to your heart.
Yes.
And it is endometriosis.
Yes.
And so that you are personally involved with this organization and that you were the past president, the recent past president.
For the Virginia chapter, yes.
Yeah. And that you've actually started your own organization called Virginia Hope.
Yes.
And so this is a very painful condition that affects up to 10% of all women.
Yeah.
And so up to 200 million women worldwide.
Worldwide, yes.
And you are one of them.
Yes, I am. And I have been very open and vocal about my story. I remember, I used to be ashamed. When I was first diagnosed, when I was a freshman in college at Troy, there was not a lot of information. I didn't even know what it was until I woke up out of surgery and a doctor told me I had it. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And freaking out. And I just felt in a way, humiliated a little bit because I had been having a lot of the symptoms for so long and no one could point me to what was actually causing a lot of the problems. And when I got to NBC, working with the Today Show, I was encouraged to share my story. And I said, I'll share my story. And I wrote about it, and it went viral. And I remember, it being posted all over the NBC News platform, social media, and just reading the comments and women just saying, me too, oh my God, I've had the same symptoms too. The doctors told me that as well. Oh my God, me too. And I said, wow. And I wasn't expecting it to take off that way, but I've always felt that writing is therapeutic. And it was therapeutic for me to share my story, and I'm very happy and open to it. And I remember going to my first endometriosis, my first worldwide endo, we call it Endo March, going to the Endo March back in 2014, and I said, wow, I really need to get involved. And I just felt a sense of relief of being able to be around other women who were going through the same thing as me. I mean, my family supported me and tried to do everything they could to give me the help I need, but I really had people that I could relate to. So I got involved and got on a team, and then, I started sharing my story and talking with these other women, and, we started having meetups, and we started working on, various forms of action. There were women on my team who really wanted to get the legislative part down. So our team was instrumental in getting it, Endometriosis Awareness Month actually being recognized in the state of Virginia. As well as helping some other women on other teams in other states being able to do that as well. So it has been, it is very near and dear to me because I've always said I don't want another young girl to feel like she's a freak or feel that she is something wrong with her and not be able to have that good support system of someone who actually understands what she's going through. And so aside from Endo March, I also volunteer with the Endometriosis Foundation of America. And they have an Empower program where they actually go into schools and teach young girls about the disease. And so me and some women on my team, we actually went to a school in Southern Virginia, and we were actually, me and another, as one of Endo Sisters, as I call us, we're actually talking with a group of high school students in her class. And I remember one girl, when we were starting to take questions, she started crying and she said, she was in 9th grade, and she said, I for a long time, I felt like no one believed me, and I've just been going through this and I don't know what to do. And it was very, very heartbreaking to hear, but it's a lot of young girls, even though we're now in 2020, that feel like that. And now you're seeing commercials everywhere about endometriosis treatment here and endometriosis that this isn't something that people are making up. And I know the BBC recently released some numbers of a survey that they did, and they did a story about it, talking about how many women have actually committed suicide because of the condition, or felt that they didn't want to live anymore because of the anxiety and the depression that comes from having this illness. Because it is very overwhelming. It's a lot of things that comes with endometriosis. And for those in the audience, I do apologize if you don't know what endometriosis is. Endometriosis is a condition that affects the reproductive system. It also goes outside the reproductive system. But when the lining, the certain cells of the lining of the endometrium, they go to other places in the body, and it basically mimics a cycle. And it causes a lot of pain, and it causes a lot of heavy periods and bleedings in that nature. And it's also a leading cause of infertility in women. And there is no age limit. There's no cure for it right now that doctors are aware of. But 1 in 10 women is a lot. And I feel that even though I've had 3 surgeries because of the condition, I feel that where I am with the condition is mild compared to other women that I know. Some women who I know have had, 10, 15, 20 surgeries because of the illness. So, I'm not going to say that even with me, doing what I do now, that, it's all sunshine and rainbows, because it's not. But, it took me a while to get to a place where even I was comfortable in myself, where I felt that, I wasn't so hard on myself, because there are some days where I feel like, I just can't do it. And, I'm in bed all day and I want to go outside or go to the mall or take a walk, and I can't. So I believe as journalists, we tell stories all the time. We go and tell stories, and we talk to people from all walks of life. And sometimes I believe that we have to tell our own stories sometimes and inform people that way. So, I've always said that I'm here to try to be a support system for other women and empower women and young girls, and I want to continue doing that through the organization and my support group.
So then to wrap things up, and again, if you are interested in a question, why don't you just come on down here, and we're going to ask you your question here in just a second. So, CNN, you started in August, this past August.
Yes.
Great time to start reporting politics.
Yes.
Very exciting time.
Yes. And even at NBC, working in Washington, D.C., a lot of news is generated, majority of it is generated out of Washington, especially even now. And, going to CNN, I kind of just, jumped in the middle of everything. And that's when everything just started taking off with the impeachment inquiry and then the hearings. And then now we're in a Senate impeachment trial. And, being a breaking news reporter, I love writing stories. I love just writing and covering everything. And politics is something that, I love. I've always been interested in government. But, breaking news is quick, it's fast.
So it's just not that you cover politics. You cover the breaking news aspect.
The breaking news aspect
So
of
if it
politics.
happens and you're on it now.
We're on it right now. And CNN is one of the reasons why, and I'm not doing a plug here, but one of the reasons why CNN is very good at getting information out is because we have reporters everywhere. We have a great Capitol Hill team, we have a great White House team. And so while they're out and, getting those, walking the halls and doing those types of stories, us being breaking news reporters, we're also there, as well. I'm a reporter too. So we're able to cover all aspects of politics. So nothing is missed. But there are times where, we have something breaking that's coming in, and you just write 2 sentences and put at the bottom, this is a breaking story, and it will be updated, and it is updated. And it is updated multiple times, not just once or twice. It may be updated 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, depending on what the story is. And sometimes, I'm writing 2 or 3 stories a day, depending on if, as people say, the news gods, if they're good to us, maybe it's 1. But sometimes it's 5 full stories a day. So, and it can be from anything. It can be from the White House. It could be Congress. It could be something going on at the Department of Education. It could be something that's happening in another state on a local level or on a state level. And I like that. I like being able to know all aspects of government and politics, but it can be exhausting sometimes.
I bet. All right, so let's take some questions from all of you. So come on down and let me... And come on up, and what's your name?
Katie.
Katie, yes, from now a current Insight student. So step on up and ask your question.
Hi. So I had 2 quick questions. One, so for someone like me transitioning or soon to be transitioning into real world experience, what is the biggest lesson or advice you could give? And then secondly, what went into your decision to pursue a post-grad degree? Yeah.
Thank you so much for your both of your questions. So for your first question, my biggest advice that I can give to you, well, there's several things I can say. Transition to the real world. I know it's scary. Learn everything you can while you're here. Your professors are here to support you. I wish I had realized that more when I was a student.
That's nice of you to say.
And no, I say that now because the time for any of you, if you're going to make a big mistake when it comes to journalism, the best place to make it is right here. You can come back from grace. You got the grace to come back. You don't want to make a big, huge mistake when you're actually working for a news organization like CNN. I mean, you have editors and people who are forgiving depending on what it is, but the world, especially with the way things are happening in media, is not very forgiving, and people do not forget names. So that's one of the things I would say. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and if you make them here and learn from those mistakes. Don't be hard on yourself. I would also encourage you to network with alumni. If it were me, network with alumni. And don't be afraid to just ask, questions. Hey, I would like for you to look at this assignment. What do you think? I did that with an alum here. And, don't be, now I am embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, did I really show him that? But I'm happy I did to get, that real world experience, feedback from someone who's actually doing it. That's number 2. And number 3, don't be afraid to cast your net wide. It's good to have ambitions and goals of where you want to be and where you want to end up. But, don't be afraid of where your path leads you. Your path can lead you many different directions and take you many different places. So those are my top. I will limit it to 3. I can give you more, but I will limit it to those are my 3. And to answer your second question, what made me go get my graduate degree was I really had a hunger and a passion. Even though I love radio and voice and commercials, I wanted to continue telling stories. And then a part of my little strategy that I had in my head, I said, ooh, NBC News is right down the street from American University. I can go ahead and go to class and get my internship, whoop, whoop, and that'll be my foot in the door. It didn't happen like that. But, I was like, I want to continue getting more experience. And then it was in Washington. So in my graduate program, they were just like, oh, you're going to go out, this is an all-day class. And we're like, what are we going to do for all day? Oh, you're going to go out on Capitol Hill. And you're going to go to congressional hearings, and you're going to sit in hearings all day, and I want a story filed by 5 o'clock. And if it's not filed by 5 o'clock, it's a 0. And they meant every word of what they said. And there was a couple of times where, I did not meet a deadline. But it was a real good experience. And so I covered a Supreme Court case that I totally bombed. I completely failed that assignment. It was, that was just absolutely terrible. I went and I wanted to continue to go and, further and sharpen my skills. That was one of my main reasons for going. Financially, yes, it was a lot, but was it worth it? Yes. So I encourage anyone, if you are able to continue your learning in the classroom, to go ahead and do it. There's nothing wrong with it, and you continue to get your experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and we have about 10 minutes left for questions. All right, and what's your name?
Taraja.
All right.
Hi, I'm a poli-sci mass communications double major.
All right.
And recently I've been getting opportunities to work at NHPR and all through a New Hampshire trip that happened through VCU.
Yes.
But I want to ask you, how do I keep that up in a way? Like, I don't really want to get lost being in school and stuff. So how do I keep these internships? What do I look for? Do you have any like possible people here? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes. So my advice. Thank you for your question. My advice to you for that is definitely being involved in organizations. I am a member of NABJ, and I know NABJ posts internship opportunities a lot. Back then we didn't have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great resource for you in terms of, some people, view candidates and people for internships right off of LinkedIn. So make sure you have a LinkedIn profile and just networking. I know it's kind of hard to juggle, internships and classes. And just really think about where you're going to be able to get, the experience that aligns with what you're thinking about doing. And even if it's an internship, you're like, I don't know, still keep an open mind about it. But I would, I'm an organizer. So, write down, what you're looking for, what you want, people you are considering, and go for it. And if you don't get it, it's okay. Just continue to, network, ask questions. If you need an internship, say, hey, do you know where I can do this? Or hey, where I can do that. So, did I answer your question?
yeah, he did. Thank you. Yeah.
Come on down. All right, what's your name?
Devin.
All right, Devin, what's your question?
Hi, I was just wondering, as somebody who's like in the business and in the thick of it all, like what your opinion is on media consumption today. Like, do you think the amount of news that we get constantly thrown at us, is that benefiting us or is it hindering us to seeing like bigger picture things?
Thank you for your question. Two parts to that. I would say, and I encourage this for everyone, find a news organization or news source that you trust, because it is a lot of information coming from different places and different organizations, and then you get into the competitor part and people trying to be first. Get a news organization that is reputable and someone that you trust, even if it's especially local news. Don't ever count out local news, because they're the ones that's going to get you what you need right now. And then with that, I say, if you feel like it's overwhelming, because there is a lot of negative things that is going on in the world that unfortunately we have to cover, because we have to inform about it. I will tell you, turn it off. I know it can be, just overwhelming, and you see so much on social media and there's things out there, and that's a lot of times now where you get your news is on social media. But so basically two things. Find a news organization or news source that you trust. I'm not just saying social media, because there's a lot of things flying around out there. It doesn't have to be CNN. I encourage CNN. But just any news organizations that you trust, one, where you can, limit the consumption of what you're getting. And then number two, if it's overwhelming for you and I'm all about mindfulness, and you feel like it's causing you to have anxiety or anything like that, step away. Go do things every day that's making you happy and it's making you feel good. And, even if it's good news, make sure you have some of that mixed in there too. So that's my advice on that.
All right, come on down. What's your name?
Catherine.
All right, Catherine, what is your question?
Earlier in your talk, you talked about like diversifying your talents between print and broadcast and radio. I was just wondering if you had any tips on how to do that while you're still in college.
So yes, thank you for your question. I would say, try to get your feet wet in everything. There's a lot of resources on campus. Maybe if it's, maybe shadowing a class, if you can do that, or taking a different range of classes, and also, in your internships, maybe, going out and, if you're on an internship, maybe for a news organization, just say, don't be afraid to ask, hey, over the digital section, hey, I would like to write an article. When you have those opportunities, ask the questions, because, 9 times out of 10, people aren't going to, come and hold your hand to guide you. I had to ask. That's how I started writing for Network. Even though they were encouraging us to pitch, no one came over to me and said, Chandelis, we want you to write this. I said, hey, I'm interested in writing about such and such, and is there, how can I get involved in that? So, being able to do that as well. And also, if it's someone, maybe if you can't, get an internship somewhere, if there's someone in a different organization, news organization or place, that you're thinking about, maybe reaching out to them and saying, hey, I really admire your work, or, I really like what you do. Is there a way I can maybe just come and have coffee, or, just maybe shadow you one day and just kind of see what you want to do? I mean, because while you're still in school, you may decide you may not like it, and that's perfectly fine. So those are some ways that you can kind of get around that a little bit. And even if it's a nonprofit organization, if you're not getting credit, just kind of going down there a few times a week and just kind of seeing how they do things. Even though it may not be a CBS 6, you do have some, nonprofits that they have to do press releases. Maybe just kind of seeing how they do that, or talking to that person. So, those are some kind of tips that I'd recommend for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, what's your name?
Dr. B.
Hello.
My name is Shakila.
Hi.
Hi. So mine is a little different. I actually have 2 questions. The first one, I am a broadcast journalism major. However, I want to go kind of in the entertainment route. So like entertainment journalism, like TV hosting, so on and so forth. And you seem to have a little bit of background in like the entertainment field. So just like any tips on how to kind of start that and branch off, because I know like on my newsreel it's going to be like hard news and stuff like that. And the second question, you were talking about connecting with alumni and LinkedIn. So will you connect with me on LinkedIn?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Since you asked, you can send me a request and I will connect. I will approve.
Please remember my face.
So to answer your question about that, I would recommend definitely trying to get internships that are maybe entertainment focused. And even if you do get an internship, at a CBS 6, there are people who write about entertainment. Maybe kind of getting some stories in there about, maybe if it's just writing something about somebody got an award or something of that nature. I know you're probably thinking like up in New York, or like or in TV or out in LA. You don't always have to do those things. You have some some places right here and around. I would also say connecting with people that that are doing it. Don't be shy, and and I keep stressing this. Don't be shy to say, hey, I really like that what you're doing. I admire your work. Do you have any advice as well? Can you point me in the right direction? Doing that also. And I would also say, I'm going to stress to everyone, even as broadcast, you want to do TV hosting, it's good to get that on camera stuff, the experience there, but writing, because you're going to have to write a little bit, getting those bylines, maybe, maybe if it's for, I'm thinking of, maybe like an online digital entertainment source. They're looking for writers. Companies are looking for writers. Maybe just getting a byline of, hey, I'm interested in writing about this, or if you need any help, or and it may not be paid, but if you want to have some clips, you need some writing clips to also go with your portfolio of saying, hey, not only do I know how to talk to people on camera, I can also interview people about it, and I can write about it, and so that'll help you also as well. You're welcome.
All right, and our final question tonight. What's your name?
Olivia.
All right, Olivia, what's your question?
So my question was, what would you say is the biggest factor in kind of getting your foot in the door, like networking or being involved? Like, what would you say is the biggest part?
Great last question.
I would say definitely networking, and if someone offers you a business card, definitely take it. Because we don't just hand out business cards. Definitely take the business cards. Don't be shy to ask questions. For me, it was the networking and staying in contact with people, and just saying, hey, how are you doing? Not just saying that you want something, but just saying, hey, I saw that story you did. I really, really like that. And oh, I heard you got this type of award. Congratulations. Are you available to get coffee? Or can I ask you a few questions or something of that nature? I would say that's definitely a big part of it. But another big part of it that I will say is you have to believe in yourself that you can do this. I know it's intimidating. You're going to make mistakes. I mean, that's how we learn and grow. But you have to believe in yourself. There have been times where I was told that I couldn't do it or that I didn't have enough experience. And it's like, okay, if I don't have enough experience, what do I need to do to get the experience? Who do I talk to? What do I need to do? What do you recommend? And, that's okay, because you're still growing. We're all growing. Even at CNN, we learn and grow every day. We continue to make mistakes and we started out just like you all. So I would say to, believe in yourself that you can do this even when you feel like you can, and to be confident in that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, well, Chandelis, that does our time. By the way, please make sure to turn in your extra credit receipts in the back. Let's hear it for Chandelis Duster, please.